Hello, my friend. Welcome back to the Mindset Check podcast. I'm your host, Misha McKittrick. This is a podcast where we believe that as you take time for a mindset check, you have more power than you think you do. And where we also believe that learning to empty our cup gives us more capacity, not only to handle life, but also to love life. I'm excited to jump into that with you today. Before we do, I'm going to share something that I have been loving lately. This has literally blown my mind, opened my eyes to something brand new, and that is air fryer chicken and fish. Dun, da, da, da. It makes cooking literally so fast and easy, and so I wanted to share it with you. I'm going to put the recipes that I love in the show notes so you can easily click and get the recipes. Literally, you make a rub. Each of these recipes has a rub, and you wash the chicken or the mahi-mahi and you dry it, and then you put the rub on it, and then you spray it with a little bit of coconut oil, right? You can buy coconut oil the same way that you can buy, vegetable oil in a spray. You can buy just something a little healthier. And so you spray it with that, and then you put it in your air fryer for seriously 9 minutes, and bada bing, bada boom, there's dinner. I mean, while it's in the air fryer, I am prepping a yummy salad. Sometimes I also will do a grain or something with it, but oh my word. It's incredible. It is so good. I'll leave those recipes for you in the show notes because they are fantastic. And I think that they're a bit of a game changer, especially in the summer when it's so hot and you might not want to cook, right? All right, now I want to report something that is kind of fun. I don't know, if you think this is super fun or if you really don't care and you're just here because you love the podcast. But I love learning that we are in the top 2.5% for global rank for podcasts. So of all the podcasts in this category, we're in the top 2.5%. What? I love knowing that. And so I just wanted to say thank you to my listeners for showing up and helping us to have those ratings and to create and grow the podcast. I love the idea that people are desiring and wanting this message, right? We've gone through a couple of seasons. I tell you a little bit more of my personal story in the first 2 seasons. And in season 3, the season that we're in right now, if you are new to the podcast, we talk a lot about our internal state and the power that we have to create a state inside us that allows us to live a life of joy and expansion. I share on a heart level, talking about frequencies and vibrations, thoughts and emotions that you can check into to help you propel forward in creating your life in such a beautiful way. I like to think of life. I read a book that talked about what if we were only ever living in a state of suffering or a state of beauty, a beautiful life? What would you have to declare that your life is, majority of the time? And understanding that we have the power to shift that no matter what's going on outside of us. In fact, the power for us to change what's going on outside of us first starts with us shifting it inside of us. So I love knowing about that, teaching and talking about it on the podcast and coaching you through that transformational space. All right, without further ado, let's jump into today's podcast. One of the best definitions I have ever heard of trauma, what makes something trauma, depends actually on how full your cup already is, right? So I think if we can let go of defining trauma like big T or little t trauma, and we can understand that the same thing can happen to one as what happens to another. And what matters is what's already in your cup. So trauma happens when the cup gets so full that it starts to overflow, right? And sometimes we operate in life with a very full cup. And so it wouldn't take very much to create trauma in our life. Does that make sense? It literally, like light bulbs were going on when I was understanding this definition of trauma. And I love it so much because it helps us to evaluate our life in a way of asking, well, what is the standing water in the cup? What makes that water? What makes the water in my cup full? In other words, what determines my capacity to handle what life might hold for me tomorrow, right? And sometimes events happen and you could have a cup that's completely empty and it would fill 10 cups, right? And it's just for sure trauma, okay? But there are often things that happen to people and it befuddles others. And they're like, how are you dealing with this? How are you handling with this? And they're handling it because they have more capacity. In other words, their cup has very little standing water in it, okay? So my aim really is to help you consistently drain the water out of your cup so that you have more capacity, so that you have the ability to really handle things in a way that doesn't shut you down, in a way where you can act instead of react to the situation, in a way where you still have your wits about you. You know, there's plenty of times when the big things happen in life, and thank heavens for the person that was standing next to us, right? Because we lost our ability to cope. And like I said, some things are just big, and that's okay. But it's really interesting when we don't have the ability to handle even the smaller things in life, the small stresses. And that's so cool to like be able to understand in a very visual way. Wow, that actually means I have so much water in my cup, and my focus could be on eliminating that water so that I have more capacity. The things that define what the water is in the cup, if you can just think through what they could be, you know, things that are unprocessed in your life, things that have kind of been swept under the rug. And a lot of times that can also happen in a very subconscious way. In other words, we're not aware that we're doing that because we literally can't handle it. There are times where my sister has brought up memories from the past that I'm like, do not remember that. I do not remember that. And I sometimes like to speculate that God made our brain and our heart in a way that it allows us to sort of be protected from what we can't quite handle yet. But when something is coming up for you and you're aware of it and you consciously tuck it away or don't deal with it, if we have things that are awry in our life and we turn away instead of handling that, that's water in the cup. It could be the weight of the load you're currently carrying. Sometimes there's not a lot we can do about that, except for continually strengthen us and, you know, empty the water as it's pouring in. And that is, you know, a very important perspective to keep as we're going through things that can be heavy. There was a moment years ago, something really big was happening in our life. And I remember I said to my husband, oh my gosh, it's a really good thing this didn't happen a year ago. I don't think we could have handled it, you know, because sometimes we are operating at max. And the big question is, you know, what can I do about it? Can I empty the cup? Can I help drain this water? Something that is just true is that when we consistently have a full cup, we're consistently on the edge, right, of falling apart, being so uptight that you snap like a rubber band at things that happen and towards people that you love, or you cope with that full cup by numbing out, and then you create this pattern of numbing in your life and you're not fully checked in, right? You're not fully available to the people who need you and yourself. Like you're not even fully connected to your heart. And if you've ever lived with someone who has had a very full cup, it's a lot easier to see it's so necessary to empty our cups when we've lived with someone else that's had a full cup. When it's us, sometimes we excuse away our full cups because we don't want to even get near that cup, and that's okay, that we can just kind of laugh about it and be in a space where we take a deep breath. I love the expression, laugh or you'll cry, because sometimes there is so much emotion there, right? And it's great to be able to be recognizing it in some fashion. But the biggest part of being able to empty your cup is you let go of overreacting, underfunctioning, feeling depleted, literally resenting the people that are in your life. You let go of those things, and you let go of little things feeling huge because your nervous system is already maxed out. When you learn to empty your cup, it literally changes who you are as a person, and you have the capacity to handle life and to love your people. It changes the memories you make and the energy you have. If you have been following me on Instagram recently, I told a story of my husband and I on our anniversary this year. We were talking about memories, and we had just been chatting and saying our favorite memories of each other because it was really fun. And a lot of the memories that I brought up about Jake, he could not remember. He's like, I don't remember that. And I'm like, you don't? And then I would share another one, and he was, I don't remember that, right? And I started to understand that the memories that he was not remembering were in times of when he was living with a completely full cup. He wasn't even remembering his life, not even the good parts that were happening. That blew my mind. It literally made us both so sad. You know what I mean? Because we know so much more now, and we know how to empty the cup. We know how to drain the water to allow us to be functioning with more capacity, and man, if we could go back in time to that younger Jake and that younger Misha, and just to have a conversation with them and to teach them a couple of the things that a lot of the things really that we know now, it would be a complete game changer for our life. Obviously, Jake would remember the good memories that I was recounting, right? And we would be able to make more good memories during those times. It completely alters who you show up as and the energy that you have as a person to function in your life. So this is all about, navigating that inner environment that we have to feel things that are stuck, to process old things, and to keep our state in a way that allows us to move through life with more ease. And the things that felt hard to us when our cup was full no longer feel hard. They really don't. There are things that still can be hard in life, but we're no longer saying the words life is hard. What are you talking about? Life is amazing. Your perspective completely shifts. Learning how to empty out the cup is really processing our life and letting go of those emotions that are causing that cup to be so full. I have a pair of earrings that I love. I love them. Not only do I just love the functionality, they're the perfect size and everything, but they have a lot of meaning to me. And they are really just a pair of gold snake earrings. They have like a little tiny loop and then a little snake that dangles from them. And some you do have to kind of get a little close to see what they are. And to me, I know I know my neighbor one time, she grew up Catholic and she had a snake in her dishwasher. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, I am not going to tell my mother. I am not going to," because they were so superstitious that they thought that that meant like bad luck or, something evil, right? And here I am, like, I love my snake earrings. But the thing that's interesting to me is what they represent to me is the story of the king cobra and lots of snakes. But I want to tell you about what happens when a king cobra grows. So a king cobra gets like tight in their skin. It doesn't fit anymore and it becomes old and worn out. And when this happens, they shed that outer layer of skin. This is a process called ecdysis. And at different times in their life, they shed skin more than others. And that whole thing is kind of interesting to look at. While they're shedding their skin, right, we said they're growing because they outgrow the skin. They're growing, they get bigger. But it has another purpose. It also helps remove parasites that could harm the snake. Obviously, I'm hoping that you draw the parallels back to you. And before a snake sheds its skin, it begins to look somewhat bluish in color, and its eyes look opaque or clouded over because the newly formed skin will cover its eyes. Because of this, they can't see well during this time. So they sometimes find a safe place to hide out until they begin shedding. It's interesting how much we sometimes can't see well when we're going through that process as well. Snakes start the process of shedding their old skin by rubbing against a rock or a tree or a similar hard surface. They typically rub a spot by their snout so they can slip out of their old skin by wiggling against rocks, plants, and similar surfaces. Some snakes are able to also shed their skin in water. I like thinking about a snake and the way that it finds a little bit more privacy as it goes through this process, and that it knows that it needs to create a safe kind of haven or place that it can be while it goes through this process. And I like to apply that to us and say, what are the ways that we process? What are the ways that are the most advantageous for us? And just, simply wearing those snake earrings reminds me of that story, and that we consistently through our life need to find a process to process, right? The snake sheds its skin to grow. What do we do to help us grow? What do we do to help us let go of the thing that could be hurting us, right? Like the parasites, they let go of the parasites in their skin. The thing that no longer fits or serves us. What do we do to be able to let go of the things that aren't serving us to be able to grow? And that's why I love those earrings so much. And I love the way that it applies to us letting go of the water in our cup. Emptying your cup doesn't mean that you all of a sudden know how to solve everything. It means that you're not afraid of what will come up, and that you know that you can process and handle what will come up, even if you need to reach outside of you for support. You're going to be okay, and figuring it out will help you be a better person. If you sit still long enough to feel what you've been avoiding, you breathe into the heart and send safety to the body. Journal or move your body, let yourself cry and feel your feelings. Get really honest about what you've been carrying that you were not meant to carry this long. Just start noticing. That's a huge part of emptying the cup. And then just allowing, being in a state where you are going to allow something to move, being present enough to notice and not to judge. You know, on the podcast we had quite a while ago, we had somebody that specializes in Chinese acupuncture. Her name is Rachel Brumberger, and she offered something that I had never thought of before, that when the body is, showing signs of pain somewhere, usually that's rooted in something emotional. And if you sit with it, you notice it, you can look it up in like a journal of sorts, right? To be able to see like, oh, if it's my left hip, it's possible that it's my body's trying to communicate XYZ to me. And then you look that up, like in something like Feelings Buried Alive Never Die, or The Body Keeps the Score, biodecoding journals, stuff like that. You can look up what the pain is related to, and simply by noticing it, and then you acknowledge to the body, you literally say like, thank you for showing me this, and I'm working on it. Amazing. And you're just in a state where you're like, hey, I'm open to whatever needs to come up for me to let this go. So a lot of processing means allowing. Also, I like to think of being like really tender and gentle with ourselves, like letting go of the judgment of having acted a certain way. Maybe you have swept something under the rug that you shouldn't have for years and years and years, and you were aware of it enough that you could be in a place of judgment. Like, I should have done, and you end up shoulding all over yourself. Allowing yourself grace and then just acting in the moment right now. I feel like that's a good thing also, to just remind yourself that you're human and that it's okay, and that you're growing and you're continually learning how to process, how to find the process to process, right? Growth isn't always visible like it is with a snake. Sometimes it looks like stillness, silence, and softness, right? Just being kind to ourselves, being present with ourselves, being a witness to our own selves is such a good thing. Another really big part for me around emptying the water that's in the cup is just regulating your nervous system. Being able to understand where you're functioning. So if you were to start to get really mindful, which mindful is like a huge part of mindfulness, I think, comes with like meditation or presence. Like, if you've never listened to Eckhart Tolle, honestly, the book, The Power of Now, it drops you right into learning how to be present, how to be so much more aware of your environment. And I think the practice of mindfulness can come through, meditation, through, the practice of being present. Because when we are mindful, we can be aware of what's actually happening. Like, if you were, in a place where you needed to give a weather report of what is happening inside of you, and you could say, blue skies, beautiful day, 77 degrees. I say 77, that's like my husband's favorite temperature. It's also his favorite number. Go figure. Or what if your weather report said it is stormy and dark in there, or it's a tornado, or even if you were just like, it's a little bit windy. It's a little bit windy. Gaining mindfulness about what is actually happening in your inner state helps you to realize, wow, let's invite some sunshine. Let's invite something different to be happening for my nervous system. Because whatever you are feeling emotionally, your nervous system is registering and you're operating in that way. Okay, so if you are consistently in emotions that are draining you, right? It doesn't matter if you are in a high heart rate or like a sympathetic state, or if you're in a low heart rate or a parasympathetic state. But if you're feeling depleted emotions like angry or frustrated or overwhelmed, or if you have kind of that lower heart rate where you're super sad, depressed, bored, and hopeless, you're releasing certain chemicals into your body by being there in your nervous system. And what is so crazy and so wild is that these emotions have an effect on your body, whether or not you're aware of it. Okay? And that you can breathe and you can feel to be able to help you swing to the other side of the spectrum, right? To energy and emotions that are charging you and that help you to feel good and to release good chemicals in your body. So you could be feeling happy and courageous and passionate, gratitude. You could be feeling calm and content. You could be feeling love, right? You could be feeling all of these different types of emotions, but people don't understand that you get to control it. And the emotions that you're feeling determine the water that's in your cup. And so if you're constantly feeling those feelings that are depleting you, not only will you continually feel that because your body's used to those chemicals and it will continue to want to release those chemicals because your bodies can become addicted to the feeling. And so your subconscious brain will help you attract more things into your life for you to feel stressed out over or overwhelmed by or angry about or critical towards, or, that operation style that is operating with a really full cup of water. And the thing that's so important to remember about this conversation is that if you're operating there, yes, you're uptight and you can snap at your people and all of these sad parts of life. But when something big happens in life, you don't have the capacity to handle it when you operate like that. And so learning how to work with your nervous system, first of all, becoming mindful, right? Like, oh, I'm aware that the weather report inside is not serving me. Like, it's tornado season inside there. And I would rather sit on the beach during a sunny day inside. It is completely possible. It's completely possible. It's just teaching your body a new pattern. It's just breathing and changing your nervous system. And when you drop into heart coherence, for me, that's the most effective way, because we can talk about lots of other ways that you can process the water inside the cup. You can do a lot of things, like even feeling your emotions or dancing and, going to yoga. And like, I've had my fair share of yoga sessions that included like a really good cry because I was moving emotion. But nothing is more effective, in my opinion, than heart coherence, because it can change your energy so quickly. It changes your nervous system, it changes your energy, and then all of a sudden, you're sitting in emotions that renew you. You're emptying the water out of the cup. You are releasing different chemicals in your body. And it is mind-blowing to me that you then begin to attract circumstances in your life that reflect a bright, sunny day, because that's what's happening inside of you. And so since we're magnetic people, right, we're human beings that have a magnetic field around us, we then begin to attract those things into our life. So just try to remember that so often we have circumstances that are very stressful and we think we're stressed because of the situation, or we're trying so desperately to control everything outside of us because we can't control what's inside of us. It's just mind-blowing to me how much we calm down, we totally chill out, We have more resilience, more capacity when we just live a little bit differently. And it really doesn't even take that much effort. That's why I like heart coherence, because heart coherence is once you learn heart coherence, it's a very effective technique that you can do for a short period of time each day, right? You can manage the water in the cup in lots of different ways. You really can. And you can take the time to journal, and you can take the time to, do breath work. Occasionally I like to do, like when I do breath work, I like to do long sessions of breath work because of what I can accomplish with that. It's pretty amazing. But as far as maintaining the water level in the cup, for me, the most effective is heart coherence. I love it so much. And I love talking about the animal kingdom and how we are all animals, right? Like we're even animals. And if you understand so much about animals, lots of animals, most animals, they actually shed their skin. It's just that like humans, like us, we shed skin cells. We actually shed millions of them a day, but they're microscopic and it isn't very noticeable because they're so tiny, but it is a continual process. It's something that we're doing all of the time, versus it being like a big event, like shedding all of our skin at once. Lobsters do it in a way that's really similar to snakes, and I love looking at lobsters and how their process is so that we can also learn from it the same way we do with snakes. They have that hard outer shell, right, that doesn't stretch. So in order for them to grow, they have to molt, which means they shed their old shell and they grow a new one. The lobster becomes uncomfortable and physically restricted. It's cramped, it's tight, it's unbearable. The lobster takes in water to swell its body, and then it splits open the old shell, and it's able to wiggle out of that shell, leaving behind something that no longer fits for them. It's a super vulnerable process. The lobster hides under a rock because it doesn't have any protection during this time. And after molting, where the lobster is soft, it is completely defenseless, and it takes several days for a new shell to harden. Here's the thing that I think is the most interesting thing about lobsters, is that in the window of softness, the lobster grows rapidly before a new shell becomes rigid again. If you've ever had big moments of shedding what no longer serves you, it's safe to say we grow rapidly too. It's pretty cool to be able to draw the parallels, to understand that growth can require discomfort at times. The lobster only molts and goes through this process when it feels pressure and pain. And just like us, the lobster has to let go of what protected it in order to grow. It is mind-blowing again to me that when the shell is soft, the lobster grows the most. When we are humble, soft, and moldable, it's the same with us. Brianna West said, "There's no growth without discomfort. There is no evolution without letting go." Such a great quote. Honestly, when we start to be aware of our internal environment, or in other words, the water level in our cup, when we start to notice that the skin feels too tight, it helps us to see that it's not worth it to live in that state. And then we can move into a space that allows for our growth. Again, when you learn to empty your cup, no matter how you empty your cup, it changes who you are as a person. You have the capacity to handle life and to love your people. It changes the memories you make and the energy you have. It is incredible. So I hope that today we can learn from the greatest definition of trauma that I've ever known of, and that we can learn from the snake and the lobster, and go find yourself a pair of lobster earrings or snake earrings or something like that to help you remember that we do need a process to process, and that when you learn how to drain the water out of your cup, you have more power than you think you do. I hope that you found some understanding or seeing things a little bit differently from some of the things that we talked about today, some of the different analogies or lessons from nature. For me, those are always so incredibly powerful. If you want to learn how to practice heart coherence in your life, I'm going to be teaching it coming up. I promise you, when you learn this, it is life-changing. It changes the way that you wake up. It changes the way you operate when you're doing normal, regular, everyday things in your life. I promise that it's worth your time. If you're interested in knowing more, then check the link in the show notes, and there will be a way for you to sign up to get on an interest list. Like, you might be kind of interested in what I am offering and you would like to know more. And you can always reach out to me on Instagram as well. You can just DM me. And if you ever don't get a response, then send me a message again, because sometimes messages get lost in Instagram. My Instagram handle is myfriendmisha. And alternatively, you can always email me at hello@myfriendmisha.com as well. I would love to hear from you. Also, I want to give you a reminder that I absolutely love Hey Mish episodes. Those episodes are where you reach out to me with a question or something that's weighing on your heart, and we walk through it together. If you have something that you want to ask, or you're just curious about, maybe we didn't cover it clearly for you, or you just have something that you're curious about in general that has to do with the things that we talk about in the podcast, then you can reach out to me in those same places. You can send me a typed up message, or you can send me an audio, like a voice memo note, and then let me know if you would like it to be included on the podcast, or if you want me to answer it without putting that on the podcast. Either way, I can totally work with what your requests are. I just really love showing up for you and being able to truly interact with my audience, because I really love and appreciate you standing, here in this space. You are all such incredible souls. You really are. And I've said this before, but I just know, because you're committed to your growth in life. You're committed to being able to just learn a little bit more about the way life might work. I don't know if it's all correct. We're just doing our best over here. But I know that you are committed to being a person who grows. And so, because that's what the podcast is about. And so I really love you showing up here, and I appreciate the hearts of the people who follow and subscribe to the Mindset Check podcast. Once again, thank you so much for letting me walk on your journey with you today. I want to leave you with a quote from Thich Nhat Hanh. He says, "The ocean of suffering is immense, but if you turn around, you can see the land." Until next time, my friend.